Hello. We're looking into Gastrophysics again today. It's a book by Charles Spence, and in this chapter from the book of Charles Spence, Gastrophysics, we're learning about the atmospheric meal. It's the name of it, at least. It's about vibes. How does the atmosphere change what you taste? That's the question. It's the larger question. Here's a particular question for this subchapter. Do you care about being comfortable? Have you ever wondered why most trendy coffee shops have such a hard and uncomfortable seating? Well, simply put, they just don't want you to linger. I know of a number of baristas who deliberately choose hard and uncomfortable furniture in order to discourage their customers from loitering and hogging tables all day long. You don't need a gastrophysicist to tell you that less comfortable chairs, the shorter you will stay. McDonald's has been doing this for years. As one commentator put it, the rule written into the design of the seats at McDonald's is that 10 minutes is the appropriate length of one's stay before they become uncomfortable. At the high end, though, the duration of the customer stay isn't an issue. Restaurants will increasingly think about how to augment the feel of the space in which their food is served. A few innovative chefs, such as Joshua Gaines, the chef owner of Seizen in San Francisco, have started to play with giving their restaurants a distinctive feel. According to the chef, you need great food, great service, great wine, and great comfort. Great comfort means everything. If it means that the materials that you touch, the plates, the whole idea of the silverware right in front of you in the right weight. We put the throws on the back of the chairs. Look at everything. Take a look at figure 6.2. It seems that Norma and Copenhagen is doing much the same thing. Here you can see a figure. It's not really that important to see, but it's a cozy restaurant. Would you rather sit in a round or a square table? Generally speaking, people prefer round or curvilinear. They prefer that over angular tables, and a preference that extends all the way from everyday objects through the architectural spaces and even furniture. Some evolutionary psychologists put this seemingly ubiquitous preference down to the angular forms being associated with danger. Think of sharp, dangerous weapons. Of course, due to practical constraints, the majority of traditional restaurants, all the floor plans are angular, but a square space can be the frame for much rounder forms in the decoration and the furniture. That's interesting. So I use this round tray because it's mentioned earlier in the book that round plates and serving things that you serve on make things taste sweeter, apparently. I have a table here that has rounded edges, but not very rounded edges. I could improve that also. I think I'd like for my space to be more comfortable, but I have people sit on the ground, so that may not in fact be the most comfortable thing for most people. Even if you're not, like most people don't sit on the ground regularly. I sit on the ground pretty much every day, and even still sometimes I feel pretty uncomfortable. Sometimes I have to like reevaluate how I'm sitting to make sure I'm doing it properly. Um, so maybe I can reevaluate how to have people sit when I'm serving tea so that it's more comfortable for them. And they can loiter a bit longer. I do want people to loiter. I want people to hang around. In one recent study, a group of North American university students were shown pictures of interior environments containing either angular or rounded furniture. The results highlighted a preference for rounder furniture, with the latter tending to elicit greater feelings of pleasure as well. Increasingly, in this case, the participants reported a greater desire to approach the curvilinear rather than a rectilinear furniture, the rounded versus the straighter. As one of the participants said, rounded furniture seems to give off that calming feeling. It's just got that brisk flavor. It just gives off that calming feeling. That's a joke. I'm just thinking of there's a radio show that I listen to, and one of the spokespeople in the radio show, one of like the main hosts of the radio show, is a spokesperson for Lipton tea, and she always says it just has that brisk flavor when she's describing the flavor, which is funny to me because she doesn't really, that doesn't mean anything. I don't think it means anything. I don't know. Maybe it does mean something. It doesn't mean anything to me. It means there's a specific Lipton flavor that, and you just say it's brisk. It's got that brisk flavor anyway. It's just got that calming feeling. Round tables can be used to help make an interior of a restaurant appear more welcoming, but they also reduce the capacity, presumably why many restaurants consultants recommend a mixture of round and angular tables, aiming for a balance between approachability and profitability. And what's more important, being approachable or being profitable? That, I think approachable. I think approachable. But that's just me thinking, personally. With no stake in having any profit for anything. I'm also here to drink tea. Right? We're not just reading this book, but I'm here to drink tea. And I'm also here to take notes, so I'm going to take some notes about that. I want to upgrade my own space, so I'm probably going to have to find, for myself, I think the recommendation would be finding a round table or rounded table. Maybe like an oval shape. Still like the long table, because I want more people to be available. But maybe I can maybe I can find a round table that can accommodate 6 or so people. And then probably thinking of other accommodations for sitting so that people are more comfortable. I wonder what it is about. Like they said that round tables lead to pleasure as well. They elicit greater feelings of pleasure. What is what is this? The elicitation of feelings of pleasure from looking at a table? I mean, I guess I do feel pleasure from looking at. I like furniture. You ever see my furniture in the background there? I like furniture, so I'm into seeing things and having it elicit positive feelings. But it seems like it's unusual to me. Look at this table. Does it elicit positive feelings? Does it elicit unpleasant feelings? For this tea, I'm drinking an Alishan ball rolled oolong tea. Let's see if I can show you. Can you? You can't see that. I'm gonna drink all of it. I'm not gonna worry about the dust. Whatever. Can you see that? I just dropped a bunch as I showed it. I wanted to give myself one little sip, and then I wanted to continue reading about the atmosphere. One thing I read about atmosphere, which was something I read off stream. So I read this book at least once a week, personally, by myself, and then I'll read the book on stream a couple times per month. That's the idea, at least. That's how it's been going. I read this book, and it mentioned about music. Classical music tends to make people stay in places longer and spend more money on their whatever purchases, whatever particular purchases, spend more money on top of staying longer. But then other types of music, like loud, energetic music, leads to people not spending as much money but leaving quicker. So you have a quicker turnover. So you might notice that a lot of restaurants tend to have louder music and more energetic music. For that reason, have higher customer turnover. But if you have classical music, you have customers stay longer and spend more money. But you know, it doesn't quite compare at the end. But in my case, I want people to stay longer, for example, on the stream, to watch longer, or if somebody were having tea with me, I'd want them to stay longer. So classical music would be the way to go. I also just personally really like classical music. Spicy. How would you like to dine in a white cube? There's some traditional establishments where no attempt has been made to augment the atmosphere whatsoever. Just think of those temples to temples to haute cuisine in their unadorned white walls, diners sitting before a starched white tablecloth, or as is currently fashionable, a starched napkin, eating in hushed and respectful silence. No one could claim that such venue were trying to distract their diners from the food, right? The idea of releasing ambient fragrances or changing the temperature of the space to match the dishes being served would be, one imagines, quite completely anathema to such a traditional restaurateur. I guess that there will always be a place for such austere dining rooms. I don't know what austere means, but I've heard that word before. But my sense is that it is hard to make that kind of approach seem contemporary or exciting, at least in the current climate. Let's look up what austere means. Austere, I think it is. Strict.
Austere.
Austere, strict. They just kind of glossed over a point here that ambient fragrances, I remember this, or changing the temperature of the space to match the dishes. I don't remember that. Now that's I'd like to get more information about how temperature relates to the atmosphere of a restaurant, and it makes people stay longer or lesser. I usually like to keep my house pretty close to the exterior temperature. Don't know why. But if I'm really cold, I'll just wear more clothing. You see me wear a robe very often, I'll just put a robe on. And if I'm hot, I'll just take off more clothing. And I very often walk around my house naked during the summertime, summer months. Just what I prefer. But I wonder what my guests prefer. I don't know. More often than not, such venues are being replaced in the San Pellegrino listing of the world's 50th best restaurants, say, by the more experimental dining concepts. What is more, bear in mind that by removing atmospheric cues, one is still making a statement. Here, I am reminded of a quote from one commentator. The modern restaurant is an experience in codes. The architecture, the food served, and even the customers are code build up to the total consumable image. Restaurants then do not just serve food, they serve an experience. So I go out with friends occasionally and I'll try to review a restaurant. The review is just me taking notes. I take my own notes, and sometimes they're fairly detailed. In the last few times I've gone out with friends, I've mentioned that the people seemed friendly, and I distinguished the people as in the servers and the other people, the other diners at the restaurant seemed friendly. Or the other diners in the restaurant in one place were very chatty because it was like a big event and there were a lot of people who were talking a lot. And that was a part of my evaluation. And they thought it strange that I would even mention or have that as a part of my personal evaluation, but I think it's a part of the experience. If I'm going to a restaurant, a lot of people are talking. It's a part of the experience, and might be important to note for me to remember. That's how I feel about it, at least. So while the decor may be minimalist, the atmosphere is very definitely never neutral. What would be a neutral environment anyway? Make no mistake, the dishes served in a white cube environment will be rated differently by diners than in any other environment that one might care to choose. Based on that evidence, the food would probably be rated as better in quality and more expensive, though perhaps less memorable. Oh, interesting. You'd rate it better quality if it's in this minimalistic restaurant, but it also be less memorable. The key point here is that it's always an atmosphere where ever food is served and consumed. Okay, so I just got one gripe about this last paragraph. The notion that a white cube is not neutral, and then he seemed to support that point by saying that everywhere you would go would be different. It doesn't support the point. You can have a neutral environment that is never seen in the wild. That doesn't take away from its neutrality. Not that I think there is a place to be neutral. I just don't think that that supports the point of calling it not neutral. Whether or not a white space would be replicable to or generalizable to any other environment doesn't really matter to whether or not it's neutral. Same also goes for those healthy, natural, and organic stores and restaurants, the places where the baskets of fresh produce are on display as you walk in. Many of Jamie Oliver's restaurants fall into this category. Make no mistake about it, this kind of atmosphere is in itself priming notions of healthy and natural in the mind of the diners. It may look casual, but it certainly is not. The creation of the display and it is itself an artifice. Often a great deal of thought has gone into the construction of that natural environment to be just so. That is part of the conceit, in fact. I bet it affects the experience just as much as the other restaurants in which the atmosphere changes on a course-by-course basis. They are still creating an impression, an expectation that will color the whole encounter between the diner and the food and their drink. So I've never seen this like this. It's really interesting, the notion of a restaurant that changes the atmosphere per meal, like per course rather. I've seen this. There's a recent Mr. Beast video where he goes to some fancy restaurant and it's got LEDs everywhere and it's got like this interactive the table has projections on it, and if you touch it and it'll have some animations and all that kind of stuff, super interactive, and it changes per every dish, per every course. It looks very fascinating to me. I didn't think that was popular, but I didn't know that it was super common or well known. Anyway, we're learning about it, all the possibilities here. You can change the atmosphere per course. What if you could change the atmosphere per bite? You know, I guess the more we get into AI generated type things and virtual reality, this is what I'm thinking. If you have a virtual reality dining experience where somehow there's like an analysis of what you're picking up as you're picking it up, and they can change the environment. You know, I guess it doesn't even have to be virtual reality. It could just be reactive. You could just use some AI, or probably don't even need. No, you do need it. You probably need some AI to do some reactivity, but you could react based on how much of a certain food is being picked up in a fork, and then have the environment change based on that. Anyway, future ideas for environments of your dining room changing as you're eating. Seems cool to me. Maybe overboard, but it seems cool. Over the years, some restaurants have really gone overboard in terms of delivering the multi-sensory atmosphere. Did I just read the word overboard and think the word overboard because I subconsciously read it? Is that the right word? Subconsciously? I saw it. I was incepted by looking at this page and I saw that word overboard. So I just used that word. I'm going to read this sentence because I was too distracted by that. Over the years, some restaurants have really gone overboard in terms of delivering a multi-sensory atmosphere. One of the most famous early examples of this is the Tonga Room and a Hurricane Bar, which opened down in the basement of the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco back in the 40s. I still remember visiting as a young graduate student, looking long before my current interest in the multisensory dining had taken root. A spectacular tropical thunderstorm with simulated thunder and lightning would unfold every 30 minutes or so during the open hours. Good idea, though, that it was, presenting the same old sound and light show for many years had taken its toll on the place. It started looking tired. Furthermore, it's easy to imagine how the customers might well habituate to the repeating multisensory scene that unfolds. Well, tell me more. What's the point? What was the hurricane? Was there a relation between the food and the hurricane? A little over 5 decades after the Tonga Room and Hurricane Bar first opened its doors to the public, and on the other side of the pond, as it were, one finds the Rainforest Cafe, a well-known London restaurant that also delivers the experience and tries to simulate all of the customer's senses. Every half hour or so, the restaurant goes dark while the guests are treated to all the rumblings and flashings of a thunderstorm in the tropics. While the Tonga Room targets more of a mature clientele, the latter venue has obviously set its sights on a much younger market, or rather, on the pockets of those who have been charged with looking after the younger market. As the self-styled engineers of the experience economy, the experimental meal, see the experimental meal, as the self-styled engineers of the experience economy, B.J. Pine II and J.H. Gilmore, they both say, the mist of the rainforest cafes appeal seriously to all five senses. At first apparent is the sound, the s and the z, and then you see the mist rising from the rocks and feel the soft cool against your skin. Finally, you smell its tropical essence, and then you taste, or imagine that you taste, the freshness. What you can't be is unaffected by the mist. That's not all the senses. There's only five senses. Do we have more than five senses? I'm going to drink some more tea here, thinking about this. Are there other ways to simulate or to stimulate other senses? Like, could you stimulate somebody's balance? Could you stimulate the sense of acceleration? I guess you can. You ever see these like four-dimensional movie theaters? You know, got the rocking, the chair just kind of jerks around. That'd be horrible at a restaurant, but worth a try maybe. Is there a way to stimulate time? Make someone feel as if time is going faster or time is going slower, or time is going exactly as it is, and just have them become aware of time moving. You could just have a clock or so. Other senses, you have the sense of vibration, which is distinct. The sense of pain, which is distinct from the touch. We did all this sensory thing, all these, the thoughts about all the different types of sensory, all the different sensory mechanisms in the body. Because you want to stimulate, there's like 3 different types of pain. There's like so many different types of touch. You've got like the small touch. You've got the bigger touch. You've got texture, which is different. Like kinesthetic, the texture, touch texture, somatic texture. You've got all of the different senses of humidity in the air. wonder if we'll get into in this book. I'm for whatever reason, I'm just thinking about John Vervaeke a lot. Food that you can create yourself, or you're like an active participant in creating it. I go to Korean barbecue pretty often, and in Korean barbecue, you have the option to just make the food yourself. The food is made at your table, and you could do it yourself. Same with like hot pot. Shabu shabu, is that made by yourself? Anyway, you got different types of food that you can just make at your table at restaurants, and I'm wondering how much that makes a difference. I guess it even goes to like you could do with Subway. You could just build your own sandwich, and I wonder if that adds to the experience or not. What level of customization would make a difference? Anyway, just more thoughts for me because I'm thinking of drinking tea and inviting people to more often mess with what I'm doing. I have some friends who are into tea, and they'll ask me questions. They'll pick up the teapot themselves. They'll brew themselves. They'll ask me to add or remove tea leaves. They'll be very active participants in the tea experience. Then I have other friends who they just want me to take care of everything, and I'm kind of wondering what if there's a major difference between these. If one should be encouraged more, which one's more likely to lead to people liking it more. John Vervaeke's making me think about all this stuff. Okay. No matter whether the grown-ups like it or not, there can be no doubting how incredibly successful the experience has been among the target audience, children. For a few years, my nieces were huge fans, though I suspect that they have rather grown out of it now. And what is absolutely clear is how successful the venture has been, commercially speaking. In other words, the atmosphere sells, and it sells when it is done well. There's been time, it is said, a lingering suspicion that restaurants are interested in the atmosphere only so far as it differentiates them from the competition and increases their bottom line. Of course, it is all too easy to get a little sniffy about the grubby financial side of things, but who isn't ultimately interested in at least breaking even? Not everybody's super interested in breaking even, but you can just think about what is the purpose of the restaurant. Do you want the restaurant to serve delicious, amazing food to the people in the community? Do you want the restaurant for you to just experiment yourself? Do you want the restaurant to explore different possibilities that are just never been before seen? Sometimes some of those things you need more money to do that, and sometimes you don't really need money to do that. Do you want your restaurant to be the the public square for people to speak at? If you just have enough money, you can just make a a square and have a restaurant. I'm thinking of Elon Musk right now. If you're not picking up on this, having X be extremely not profitable and probably never being profitable, but that's not the point of it, at least in its current iteration. You don't really need to have money. You don't need to have the bottom line be the important thing. It's unfortunate. Well, it's not unfortunate, but the idea of using the bottom line, right? It's a certain type of emphasis, and it's making you focus. It's changing your mental state into paying attention to finances as if it were the most important thing. Calling it the bottom line is what is changing the focus and making it seem as if the finances are the most important. But they don't have to be. They usually are, though. Of course, all things get sniffy. Okay. As the influential British chef Marco Pierre White once put it, any chef who says he does it for the love is a liar. Wait, any chef who says he does it for love is a liar. At the end of the day, it's all about money. It's another thing. At the end of the day, it's another way of emphasizing certain things. I never thought I would think I I never thought I would ever think like that, but now I do. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy having to kill myself 6 days a week to pay the bank. If you've got no money, you can't do anything. You're a prisoner of society. At the end of the day, it's just another job. It's all sweat, toil, and dirt. It's all misery. Wow, this is from influential British chef Marco Pierre White. Not very happy in this quote about having to make money. One could also mention the popular dine in the dark restaurants here, such as the dark restaurant Nocto Vegas in Berlin. They clearly fit into the atmospheric framework, with a sensory input removed rather than added. Nevertheless, going into one of these restaurants is a very definitely an experience, but not necessarily one that is centered on great tasting food. I've done this myself. I've gone to one of these dark dining in the dark restaurants when I was in high school, or when I was actually in elementary school. Yeah, it must have been in like fifth or sixth grade. I don't know what elementary school is, or what is middle school. I was in fifth or sixth grade, somewhere in that area. I'm just thinking of the people that I remember at the school I was at. I know it was kind of cool. I kind of enjoyed it. One thing that stood out to me during this entire experience, it was like I think it was an experience for uh, awareness of blind people. I think because the whole experience, like we have to walk through the whole restaurant in the dark. I don't know if the dining in the dark restaurants are normally you go there and then you sit down and you dine, like you would normally dine, like you would just walk over and then sit down and dine, or if the dining in the dark restaurants are always you have to traverse the space, walk around in the dark. Anyway, I'm not sure. I dined in the dark. The thing that I remember most is that there was a room that had exit signs that were still visible. Completely pitch dark everywhere. No light from windows or anything like that. But the regulations requiring exit signs to be visible still existed. Couldn't get around that one. We're prisoner to society. To summarize then, the atmosphere affects our food behaviors in a number of ways. Everything from influencing where and what we choose to eat, chooses in quotation marks in this book, through to how long we stay, not to mention how we think about the overall experience. But it is worth noting that we haven't addressed so far the more fundamental question of whether changing the environment really does modify what people perceive on the plate or in their glass. This is the kind of question that we are most interested in as a gastrophysicist. And we have a figure here that says that all senses play a role in controlling our behavior while drinking and dining. The intelligent restaurateur knows how to work with these senses to create the right environment. The scientific approach to multisensory atmosphere design has led to a number of restaurant chains increasing their profitability. A scientific approach. And there's just this figurine here labeling different aspects of dining. The sound. Adjust the volume in the tempo to control the service cycle timing. Right? So I want to play quieter classical music to make people chill. Visuals. Use color and design to attract and stimulate the guests. I don't know what visually I could put around my room or my house to make it in line with tea. Lighting. Vary the intensity to control the table turns. Having more intense lighting makes people leave. Having lower intensity lighting makes people more chill. Waft. Waft good smells to please those in the queue. Ooh, get some sense in here. And in furniture, make it attractive and not too comfortable, unless you want people to stay. That's what that says. All right, I want to drink some more tea, all right? This is a tea stream. And I'm really here just to drink tea. I'm not here for the bottom line. The bottom line of a financial sheet. I'm here because I want to enjoy drinking tea. And I want to improve it for myself, and then perhaps improve it for my guests, if there are ever any guests coming to my house to drink tea, which I often do have guests come to my house to drink tea. I want to improve the experience for them. And I do at some point want money from tea. So at some point the bottom line will be an important factor. It won't be the main factor, but it will be an important factor. Because I want to have more expensive teas. There's some teas that are very expensive. And I'd want to try those expensive teas as a part of experimental trying different things. I want to try a whole range of teas. Like, I like nice teas. And I want to be able to try some of the higher end of the nicer teas. And also I want to see if they are actually nicer teas, you know. The more expensive teas are not always the nicer teas. And I'd like to know about this kind of stuff. I want to explore more about tea and put out the risk and pay $1,000 for a couple 100 grams of tea. See if it's worth it. It'd be worth it just in terms of the taste or in terms of the experience, but see if it correlates. More of what I mean. See if the price correlates to the experience, the pleasure of the experience, or maybe the uniqueness of the experience. You know, I don't have a really good tracking of all the teas that I've bought and how much I've paid for them all. I don't know what the most expensive tea I've bought is. Oh, actually, I do. I do remember the most expensive single serving of tea. And but I don't know the most expensive purchase of tea. Usually I buy tea that's usually you buy tea that is more than a single serving. And a single serving would be like 5 grams, anywhere from 5 to 10 grams. If you're buying 10 grams of tea, you're probably just buying a single serving. 5 to 10 grams is kind of like the range for a single serving. And I've paid $30 for 10 grams of tea. Probably the most I've ever paid for tea. And I've also paid, I think I paid $400 for a cake of tea, which is a cake would be 300 grams, 350 grams. $400 for that. Pretty expensive. No, I've paid $100 for oolong tea. It was I think it was 50 grams, 50 grams of a Rogue Way. That was very good. I've paid a lot of money for teaware. Yeah, this teacup itself was like 70 bucks. In any case, I would need more money to buy more teaware, for example, and buy more more expensive teas, more teaware, more decorations for my tea room, so on and so forth. And that would be great, because then I could have these interesting experiences that I could share to my friends. I love serving tea in this silver cup to my friends because it greatly enhances the experience. All right, enough about money. Atmospheric tasting. Listen to the chefs and you'll hear conflicting views. When interviewed a couple years ago, French chef Pirate, Paul Pirate was quoted as saying that he didn't believe at all in the multisensory atmospherics in his restaurant Ultraviolet in Shanghai made any of his dishes taste better. What? This Ultraviolet, I've heard of this restaurant. It's a crazy restaurant. Rather, he thought simply that the memory of the dish is stronger. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Doesn't make anything taste better, but it makes the memory stronger. A worthy enough aim, but is that all there is to it? I mean, that would be great, right? If you could just make the memory stronger, that'd be amazing aspect of food. Also, in addition to just making the memory of it stronger, just making the attention stronger in general. You can attend to it more. It's all the same thing. You attend to something more strongly. You have greater attention to something strongly, then you can also remember it more likely. Something for me to think about myself. Memory. Yeah, I like the memory. I like the memory because you have the with any food, with any tea. See, a major part of tea is having the aftertaste. That's that's a major part of the tea. Drink the tea. It feels good. Like I'm drinking this tea. But as I'm drinking it, it tastes good. It feels good. After I've drank it, like now, I've got this pear feeling around my mouth. Pear taste. It's a feeling coating the mouth, and there's a taste that's like seemingly directed in the throat and in the sinuses. I've got this warm feeling in the chest. It's like persisting and feeling really good. Did I say it was spicy earlier? You know that's that type of warm feeling. It feels really pleasant and really soft and soothing, and that's a part of the aftertaste, and that can persist for a long period of time. And then you can have more of those effects persisting for even longer periods of time. And then you have the memory of all of those effects, which can persist for a very long time. And that's all a part of the aftertaste. So the tail of the tea experience, the tail of it can be very long, and of course I'd want that to be at least somewhat cultivated and refined. So that's a large part of it to make the experience more memorable. Where the aim, isn't it? But is that all there is to it? Ironically, the press reporter in which Pirate is quoted itself seems to come to a different conclusion. According to the journalist, each dish is accompanied by a carefully choreographed set of sounds, visuals, and even scents, all intended to create a specific ambiance and to enhance the flavors of the meal. So that's not what Parrot thinks that it's just a memory. The journalist thinks that it is enhancing the flavors of the meal. Parrot is not alone in his views, though. Others, including the French chef Alain Cinderens, who once complained about the Michelin man's penchant for fancy fittings, he says, I was spending hundreds of thousands of euros a year in the dining room on flowers, on glasses, but it didn't make the food taste any better. On the other camp, there are those like Huston Blumenthal who have latched onto the fact that the atmospherics really can modify the tasting experience. We first demonstrated this with Heston's at the Art and the Senses conference back in Oxford in 2007. The lucky participants at this event got to eat oysters while listening to the sounds of the sea and to taste bacon and egg ice cream to either the sound of sizzling bacon or to the clucking of farmyard chickens. We demonstrated that people rate bacon and egg ice cream as tasting significantly eggier when listening to the sound of farmyard chickens clucking in the yard, but when played the sounds of sizzling bacon instead, the bacon flavor becomes more intense. I was just thinking about bacon ice cream. That bacon and egg ice cream. Breakfast ice cream? Changing the atmospheric sounds altered people's perception of test foods. Playing the sounds of the sea also made the oysters more pleasurable, but not saltier. Sorry, I got a notification on my Facebook, which I am going to turn off. I often forget to turn off the sound of that tab. All right, good. In the years since, I have been lucky enough to team up with some of the world's leading drink brands to conduct large-scale multi-sensory tasting events with the members of the public. Typically, these events have built on the belief that the changing in the atmosphere will influence the tasting experience. And rather than manipulating just the sonic environment, we've been working to modify the visual and the olfactory aspects of the environment too. Olfaction being smelling, the 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 scent aspects of the environment. Let us share a couple of the experiences. We're going to read a little bit more about that, but I want more of this tea. How could one make a tea tasting more memorable? There's like infinite things to do. I always enjoy the sound of my kettle boiling water. Very soothing to me. I have a bit of a history of listening to my water boil for the 10 minutes that it takes to boil. 8 minutes or so, but 10 minutes, or I'll just say 10 minutes. The 10 minutes that it takes to boil, listening to it as it boils. And doing nothing but listening to it as it boils. Such a weird pour. I'm just looking at the pour of this tea. The tea is not pouring very well. But that was like a weird, it was like a pincer pour. It was like a pincer. It's like a pinching. I'm usually going for V shape. A flowing V shape, filled in V shape. But this is like a pincer V shape that was not filled in. Not sure why, but I think it's because I'm at the end of the tea. Usually ball roll oolongs have a tendency to pour much better. I guess any oolong, ball roll oolong, strip oolongs, they both pour really, really nicely. And would I consider a baojong a ball rolled or strip? I think it's a strip oolong anyway. They're shorter strip oolongs. They pour really, really well. But I'm at the end of this tea, so I have a lot of tea dust. And the smaller tea leaves, the broken tea leaves, have a tendency to, I'm thinking, to clump in the middle and make the water spread out to the sides. All right, let's get into one of these experiences. This one's called the Singleton Sensorium. Silly name. Typical of this gastrophysics approach was the Singleton Sensorium, which took place over 3 evenings in the heart of Soho, London in 2013. My colleagues from the Condiment Junkie, a UK-based sound agency, decorated 3 rooms with an old gum maker's studio in very different styles. One room aimed to recreate an English summer afternoon, another was designed to prime notions of sweetness, while the third had a distinctively woody theme. The Condiment Boys also generated some atmospheric soundscapes to play in the background of each room. Take the sweet room. It was decorated in the pink and red hue, chosen because the color most people generally associate with sweetness is pinky red, apparently. I thought it was just red, but pinky red. I really like the color pink, personally. Pinky red. You ever see my... I have a tea room that's upstairs. It's probably a defunct tea room. I should just call it defunct at this point. I don't use it very much anymore because I use this room for my tea now. I have a tea room upstairs that's pink because I like the color pink. Maybe I should paint this room pink because I like the color pink. I painted that room pink specifically because I was going to use that room for tea and be in it every day. And then I moved away from that room and I'm no longer in it every day. I'm here now every day. There's nothing angular in the room. Everything is round. The table, I don't know what the POF is. Even the floor plan and the window frames are round. Why? Well, because our research has shown that people associate rounder shapes with sweetness. Something called a POF, P-O-U-F. Never heard of that before. These are chairs. They're like pillow chairs, or really big pillow chairs. You know, that would be great for sitting on tea. I'm gonna find me some POFs. Can I do POFs here? Looking at my space and trying to see if I can do POFs here, and I think I can. You know, another thing I want to do? Oh my gosh, I go to there's a place where I like to get furniture from, and they have these footstools that are cow. I don't know what to call it. The natural cow skin, you know, it's got the hair on it. It's got the hair retained on it. It's like leather, but still has it's not leather, I don't know. It's the cow skin, but it's got the hair that's still on it. And I just love them. I love how they look. And that'd be great to sit on too for tea. I wonder if it'd be too high for the current table I have, or maybe I do want a table anyway that's different, that's round. I'll look into it. I'll look into it. I know what a POF is now. POF sounds like a good idea. Comfort. Here's, I'm going to look for POFs. And footstools. Sitting. So the posts are round, the table is round, the floor plan is round, and the window frames are round because round shapes are associated with sweetness. There's also the sweet smelling but non-food related fragrances and the high-pitched tinkling of what sounded like wind chimes coming from the ceiling-mounted loudspeakers. The latter choice was again based on our laboratory research showing that people associate sounds with sweetness. High-pitched tinkling type sounds with sweetness. So every sensory cue had been chosen on the basis of the latest gastrophysics research to help prime, consciously and otherwise, notions of sweetness on the palate. The first room, by contrast, had been designed to prime grassiness on the nose. The final woody room was meant to prime textured finish and aftertaste in the mouth of wood. After 3 evenings, nearly 500 people were escorted into the rooms and in groups of 10 to 15 through an experience lasting no longer than 15 minutes. At the outset, everyone was given a glass of whiskey and a scorecard and a pencil. They filled in one section of the scorecard while standing in each room. The punters were asked about the grassiness of the whiskey on the nose, the sweetness of the taste, and the woodiness of the aftertaste. They indicated how much they liked the whiskey and what they thought of the decoration of the room that they were standing in. I was one of their tour guides, and let me tell you, it was an exhausting experience. It was one of the first times that anything like that had been tried on this scale. Would the experience work as planned, or would the people simply walk away saying that the whiskey obviously tasted the same in all of the rooms because it was, after all, obviously the same whiskey? It was a huge relief to find, once the results were analyzed, that as a group, people rated the grassiness on the nose of the whiskey as significantly more intense while in the grassy room. And meanwhile, in the second room, the whiskey brought out sweetness on the palate as expected. And in the final woody room, it did actually have an accentuated woody aftertaste. The psychologist, as a psychologist, one always worries about the so-called experimental expectancy effects, meaning that your subjects may say what they think that they want you to hear rather than to tell you what they actually experienced or what they actually thought. In fact, at the end of the sensorium, one or two people did approach me and say something of the sort, "We knew what you were up to. You wanted us to say that the whiskey tasted grassier in the green room, right? So we did the opposite." Note, though, that even those trunculent individuals were not unaffected by the multisensory experience, at least in the manner of speaking. They were affected, but maybe wanted to ignore it for the reporting. I don't know what trunculent means. Truculent? U-C-U-L-E-N-T, truculent. Eager to argue.
Truculent.
Truculent.
Truculent. Truculent.
Truculent.
Truculent.
I think I've heard that word before, truculent. I think I've heard Bill Maher say that about Boston comics. Bill Maher was talking to Bill Maher was talking to, what's the other comic's name? His name is Bill. Bill Maher was talking to another comic and was saying that Boston comics were rowdy, but the other comic was making fun of Bill Maher for being an intellectual. So Bill Maher started using fancy words like truculent, and I believe he said that Boston comics were truculent. All right, so these individuals were truculent because they were being deliberately oppositional, being contrarian. Okay. So we should note that these folks were not unaffected. And crucially, the group analysis revealed that such individuals were clearly in the minority. What is more, people enjoyed the whiskey mostly in the woody environment, so manipulating the multisensory atmosphere in this scientifically inspired manner really did affect what people had to say about the drink in their hand, depending on the room and changing the people's rating and the nose and the taste of the finish of the whiskey in the order of 10 to 20%. Would whiskey experts have been equally affected by the singleton sensoria? It is difficult to say for sure. However, it is worth noting that neither the whiskey expert nor, for that matter, the wine aficionado can necessarily do all the things that they think or say they can do when it comes to blind tasting. What is perhaps more relevant is that the experience was powerful enough for a number of chefs and restaurateurs and designers to go away and change the way in which they deliver some of the foods and beverages that they offer. For example, staff at one of the famous restaurants called at the Lake District in the northwest of England started serving guests whiskey from a wooden tray, matching the environment in which they themselves had most enjoyed the drink while taking part in the event. Oh, that's interesting. Restaurant liked the woody, so they had a woody tray. I've got a tray here that's made of wood. Maybe that's affecting how much, I've got a cup made of wood, a tray made of wood, got a wood table. We've got wood furniture behind me. Got a lot of wood around. Does that make my tea more woody? This tea is not particularly woody. Okay, this tea is a little fruity. Let me think about this. Could I just have a fruit basket? You just have a fruit basket. You just have it like lying around, available for snacks at the end of the tea tasting. But then, of course, the fruit basket is just there to make people think more of the fruity flavors. It's a genius idea. Same with flower decorations. All right, the color lab. We're going into the color lab, all right? Are you ready to enter the color lab? What do you think would be the best color to bring out the fruitiness and freshness of a wine? Red. We've been talking about red plates. We've been talking about redness. But red wines are not sweet, right? I'm not a wine drinker, so... Isn't it white wines that are more sweet? Or is it red wines? And then you have red, like, red fruits are more sweet, right? Like red bell peppers are sweet. I'm just gonna say red. And could you achieve the same effect by playing sweet or sour music? Sour music tends to be distant, high-pitched music or sharp and staccato music. So, could certain music bring out sweetness or sourness in a wine? We set out to answer these questions in what may well have been the biggest ever tasting experiment and event of its kind, known as the Color Lab. More than 3,000 people were tested over an unseasonably warm May bank holiday weekend in the banks of the River Thames in London as a part of the Streets of Spain festival. Wow, he gave so much detail in that single sentence, making me really relive that experience. Each person was given a glass of Spanish Rioja. I'm going to say Rioja. A glass of Spanish Rioja in a black glass. They had to rate the wine first under regular white lighting to get the baseline measure, then under red illumination, then under green environment with the sour music playing. Finally, they tasted the wine under red lighting again, but accompanied by sweet music. And once again, 15 to 20% change in people's rating were observed in switching from one audiovisual environment to another audiovisual environment. The red lights and the sweeter music, consonant music with high-pitched, neither rough nor sharp, but smooth and flowing, this is kind of sweet music, were found to accentuate the fruitiness of the wine, while the green and color and the sour music brought out the fresher notes instead. All right, I got a lot to write down here for this sweet music, and we've talked about sweet music before, but we didn't put in combination with sweet music and color. We talked about color before. We talked about all these things separately before, but all together we have not. Sweet music being consonant, high-pitched, neither rough nor sharp. Smooth and flowing. Sour music. Okay, here we go. Dissonant. The organization of this. The information is not organized in a very good way for me to revisit. That's why I'm taking notes here, so I can revisit all this information in a very much easier and more structured way. You know, I'm sure AI could help with this. Give it this book. Okay. Sour music tends to be dissonant. High pitched again. Rough. Sharp. Staccato. Then we got sweet color, which is pink red. And the sour color is green. And sour is also freshness. While previous gastrophysics research had already demonstrated, albeit on a much smaller scale, the changing of color and the lighting and music playing in the background can change what people say about wine that they're tasting, this was the first to combine all of the multisensory in a congruent manner. We're looking for what some have themed or termed a super additive effect. Super additive effect. Simply put, this is the idea that various atmospheric cues might combine to deliver a multisensory effect that was bigger than the sum of its parts, or greater than what you might expect merely from adding the effects of a light and sound when presented individually. As we had hoped, I'm thinking of the phrase greater than the sum of its parts, which was said, I don't remember who said this. It's about the Gestalt theory, that the all things together is different than the sum of the parts. He didn't say greater. Anyway, different. As we had hoped, the sonic seasoning, the sweet music with the red lighting, and the sour music and the green lighting did indeed enhance the effect of the lighting and the taste of the wine. One of the results, or the deliverables, of such multisensory events is the statistical evidence that the environment influences people's perception. On occasion, the results may also reveal that the relative importance of the senses and the experience. Often, though, what is much more powerful, at least in terms of convincing people, is that the change in what they themselves felt. In fact, when we trialed the color lab and the winemakers in Campo Viejo, they were so impressed that they left saying that they would be redesigning their entire cellar door experience as soon as they got back to Spain. Furthermore, one of the wine writers with whom I work, who was, by his own admission, initially skeptical, now uses changes in the ambient lighting as a party trick when leading informal wine tastings. So next time you open a bottle of wine at home and find that it is not to your taste, why not try changing the music and or the lighting first before you reach to a different bottle? Sometimes it really is that simple, assuming that the wine doesn't have some obvious flaws. Nowadays you can buy remote control color changing light bulbs for virtually nothing online, but there really is no excuse. Really is no excuse, is there? Alright. So, color changing lighting. Can I do that? Yeah, I guess I can just do all of my. I don't have to do fancy LED strip lights or anything like that. I have lamps and I have lights. I just change the light bulbs there, and then there's another thing I was just reading, right? Music. Even now, I'm myself getting uncomfortable sitting. See, how long have I been sitting? I've been sitting for over an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm starting to get uncomfortable. That's not long enough because my tea sessions usually last longer than that. So I did recently sit here for about 5 hours. That was mostly fine. I did move a bit, but it's mostly fine. If you're wondering what counts as sour music, you could try Niklas Öckland's Horisont. For something... See if I can actually find this song. I guess I don't want to play it on YouTube, but if I can find it. Niklas... Nils Öckland's Horisont. Indeed, I can find it. Hold on. YouTube's a bit strict with the music, but I'm gonna see if I can immediately pick up on the sourness. All right, I can pick up on the high pitchedness. I can hear the roughness and scratchiness. I don't hear the dissonance. But I only heard like 2 notes there. I hear the dissonance. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I can pick up on it. For something sweet, look for tracks with a lot of tingling and high-pitched piano notes. Often something that sounds like Poles et Copes from Camille Saint-Saëns' The Carnival of Animals. Okay, I don't know that one. I do know Carnival of Animals, but I don't know that particular song. Poles et Copes. Also wish that we could just translate that to English because it's pretty easy to just say in English. Hens and roosters is what it is. Cooks. Thought we didn't want staccato though. It's not flowing. This is very staccato. Is there orchestra version? Yeah. Alright. That's fairly staccato. Not lining up with what he said earlier. Whatever. Alright. We can easily find our own music that's flowing and smooth. And high-pitched. Or tracks 6 and 7 from Mike Oldenfeld's Tubular Bells. You know Tubular Bells? I'm singing that wrong. That one. That's pretty scary. I don't know what tracks 6 and 7 are. Bells. Oldenfeld. Okay, full album, that's what I want. What track number? It's just broken up into 2 parts. Part 1 and part 2. Not getting a... Oh, here we go. Here we go. Something. Alright, track 6. I'm not getting the high pitched. I'm getting the smooth. Actually, that was pretty rough. It's like a bagpipe. Okay. One more here. I don't know, this like hammered dulcimer type thing is pretty rough to me. All right, there's a lot of songs being listed here. I'm not going to go through all the songs, but I was just interested in Tubular Bells. It's a cool song. All right, you might want to choose something like Carmina Buranas by Carl Off or Nessun Dorma in the third act of Puccini's Turandot. I think Nessun Dorma is bum 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 ba da da bum 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 ba da da boo doo 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 boo doo doo. Or maybe it's the other one. I don't know which one it is. I don't know opera. I'm not an opera person. I don't really like opera very much. But those are some cute songs. Alright. These lighting manipulations work well enough when the wine is served in a black tasting glass, as in the color lab. I could well imagine that the effects would be even more pronounced if the wine were served in a clear glass, where the color of the wine itself may also change as a function of the ambient lighting. You do need to be a little careful here, though, because if too dramatic a change in the lighting is introduced at meal times, it may change the actual visual appearance of the food itself. As one commentator put it, a red light makes everything look red. A green light makes everything look gray and spoiled. Ooh, that's not good. Of course, different people have different objectives as far as the use of ambient lighting is concerned. While some may wish to bring out the freshness in their wine, others may be wondering whether there are certain colors, or for that matter, types of music that may help promote healthy eating. For instance, use of red lighting to bring out sweetness without calories. You want more sweetness and no calories. Research shows that the color of the ambient lighting can influence a diner's appetite. For example, yellow lighting was found to increase people's appetite, whereas red and blue lighting decreased people's motivation to eat. What? That is crazy. Eating. Effect on appetite. Get red. Well, first she said yellow. Hello. Increases the appetite. Red and blue. Increases. When the color of the food and of the ambient lighting match, it seems to stimulate the appetite, whereas complementary colors suppress the appetite. Also relevant here are the results from a recent study conducted in Sweden, in which found that dieting Swedish males eating their breakfast under blue lighting felt fuller with less food. Wow. Okay. Oh, that's the end of that. That's the end of that subchapter. Well, we're almost done with the chapter. Nice. All right. Time for more tea here. Bum 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 ba da da. Bum 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 ba da da. I'm singing while playing music in the background. It's not a good idea. I could play my own music. There's some music that I like where there's like overlapping multiple songs. It's a bit chaotic. I don't think it's the kind of music that most people like. But I definitely highly enjoy. I can't listen to it for a long period of time anymore because it makes my mind go crazy. As you might notice if you've watched any of these streams, I've kind of got a tendency to go off in lots of different directions at a time. Wild, wild thoughts. I'm gonna play some music. It might explain some of the wildness of thought. It's a collage. It's a collage of different songs. But that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about this one in particular and this part of it. So I gotta go. So I'm writing these songs in a very strange manner. The first song is in sonata form, pretty strict sonata form. This song that I'm playing right now is in sonata rondo form. Sonata rondo form. And as a part of the second theme of the sonata rondo, uh, all of the songs are very overlapping. Anyway, that's my idea of a good time. Okay, and that's only the first iteration of the second theme. Of course, in a rondo sonata form, you have to have the second theme reappear and be transcribed to the main key, which I also do. So let's try it out. All right. It's too much for me. It's too much. Mine is stimulated in all these different ways. See, all these songs, I know all the songs. These are songs I listen to. I used to listen to. Back in college, when I used to listen to music more often. Listen to all these different songs and putting them together. Now for me, it just makes me think about each of the songs. So now I'm just going off these different directions. Um, I like it a lot. Here's another one. Classical music. Something about classical music. I love classical music, and I love how there's so many different recordings of certain classical songs, and then also you have certain themes that like repeat or like tiny little sections that will be very similar in many different classical songs. So being able to put them all together into like a collage here, and they fit really well. I like it a lot. It just that super appeals to me. Another thing I like to do is like I like to listen to the same song with different recordings. Obviously, I had to do that for that recording. For that collage, I had to do that because it's a demonstration of that. Also, I have like little playlists that have the same song in different recordings that I like to listen to, and it's just so good. So this is one I've been listening to more recently. I know YouTube gets real snippy with copyrighted material, so I'm not going to play a lot of any of these particular songs. But This song is so good. It's a Brahms piano trio. Piano trio number 2 from Brahms, and specifically the scherzo, because the scherzo is fantastic. Let's do this. Peel your ears. Wow. Wow. It's so amazing. Hold on. It's so amazing. I'm gonna turn this up. I'm gonna turn this up for myself. Hear more too. Listen to this. Listen to how it starts. It's just so it's so amazing. 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 I just love it. Here's another one. Okay, one more time. You guys are fast. Amazing. All right, that was the first. What do I call that? First theme of the first theme? I don't know. First theme of the scherzo. I think you'd call it the first theme of the scherzo. Distinguishing the scherzo from the part that's called the scherzo. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. It's really cool. There's another part in the song. There's a part in this song where there's like a. I have not read the sheet music before, but and not all of the performers do this. Some performers seem to add a fermata in a random part of the song, and it's so good. It's just like this amazing point where it's like this really big build up, and there's like a short breath before it really hits. I'm just so nervous about YouTube that I don't want to play it. Yeah, let's play it. Modulations going on here. Did you hear that? That fermata? That like it's just like that pause. You know, as opposed to that would be like a regular, but they add the pause. I don't know how we got on this subject here. Okay. Why are we listening to music? Why are we talking about music? This is not a music stream. Not intended to be a music stream. I just happen to like that. Scared so. That's how I hear it. What's cool to me is sometimes I could, listen to, if I'm listening to multiple different recordings of that song, or of any particular classical music piece, I'm going to call it songs. They're not really songs, but, we don't have to get super technical with the language. Listening to that song, different recordings, some people play it really fast, some people play it pretty slowly, some people like emphasize on certain parts of the rhythm, some people make sure to like stagger some of the rhythm and in certain parts of the song, which is really cool to hear the texture come out of that. Again, I've never seen the sheet music, so I don't know what Brahms is really focusing on in his writing versus what people are picking up on and trying to emphasize on themselves. But Brahms is kind of a weird guy in terms of texture. He likes to do different staggered, you know, having a rhythm of 3/4 versus a rhythm of 2/4, that type of thing, or a 5/4 over 3/4. He does that quite a lot. So he likes to have these kind of weird staggering rhythms, and to have like a grace note be very, very emphasized to make a staggered texture. That'd be very much up Brahms's alley. Anyway, a lot of people do that in that a lot of the recordings have that type of staggered texture. Some of those recordings have that fermata in a couple places. Some of the recordings just blast through it, just like lightning fast, no stopping anywhere, no changing in the rhythm or no changing in the tempo in any of the sections. Pretty cool itself. Okay, we're no longer talking about music. Okay, controlling the restaurant environment. So we know what happens in experimental events, but do you think that you would eat less if the lighting and music in the restaurant were softened to create a more relaxed atmosphere? Well, researchers have tested this combined impact on changing the lighting and the music on the behavior of diners at Hardee's. Specifically Hardee's in Champaign, Illinois. The restaurant in question had two dining areas, ideal for gastrophysics research. One, the lighting was set to normal bright level, and the color scheme was bright, and the music was playing in the background, and it was loud. And the other fine dining environment had much more relaxed atmosphere that were and they had potted plants and paintings, window blinds, and indirect lighting. Oh, and did I mention that the white tablecloth colored tables with candles on top and soft jazz instrumental ballads in the background? Those who ate in the more relaxed side of the restaurant rated their meal as significantly more enjoyable, the Hardee's, while at the same time consuming less. Their calorie intake was reduced by more than 150 calories, or 18%. In fact, the environment has such an effect on us that we could obviously have impact. I need to take that sentence once more. The fact that the environment has such an effect on us could obviously have implications for the restaurateur. In fact, it has been suggested that is precisely why the Hard Rock Cafe and Planet Hollywood chains have no windows, which give them, just like casinos, greater control over the environment and the stimulation of the customers that they're exposed to. Okay? And we're going to finish off the rest of this chapter here, learning about the future of atmospherics. So, how might the atmospheric aspects of a dining change moving forward? One designer puts it recently, in a short time I have been in business in the designing of restaurants, design has definitely become a major element of the dining experience. The environment and its uniqueness has become as important as food, and designers and owners are becoming more sophisticated in how they use light and color and materials. We haven't talked about materials. We're not going to in this chapter at least. And if you want to see what the future may hold in terms of restaurant design, why not take a look at the Goji Kitchen and Bar in the Marriott Bund Hotel in Shanghai. The decor in this futuristic dining space actually changes to give the restaurant one or two different feels depending on the time of the day. It is undoubtedly an expensive solution, but it is also an acknowledgement that decor and environment actually play a real role. It stands as a testament to the importance of the atmosphere component of the everything else to mealtimes. And while it is difficult to figure out how much time to spend in the decor, as soon as you are aware of just how much it influences the dining experience, then there is really no looking back. That's not true. You could look back. But he's trying to encourage you to not look back. However, while getting the atmospherics right is undoubtedly a challenge, it is also important to remember that there is no way to avoid its influence, much though one may wish to avoid the influence of atmospherics. There is an interesting challenge here in terms of how to customize the atmospherics to individual diners or to individual tables. Currently, most high-end multi-sensory dining experience either serve single-sitting restaurants, think of Ultraviolet in Shanghai, or the Sublimotion in Ibiza. So these are single-sitting restaurants. Or think of the headphones that are brought to tables to accompany particular dishes, such as the sound of the sea at the Fat Duck, for instance. However, I know of restaurants out there who are already thinking about whether they can use hyper-directional loudspeakers that are positioned over tables in order to deliver a soundscape personalized to whoever is eating a particular dish. And that'd be really cool. Crucially, none of the diners would be able to hear what is going on at any other tables. This kind of solution is currently prohibitively expensive, but for the most affluent restaurateurs. Nevertheless, looking ahead, I can well imagine that it will become more common given the growing emphasis on personalization and customization, together with the falling cost of technology. I'll think about the possibilities of using AI, for example, to mix different types of music. So you can like figure out what the diner's favorite music is through whatever means you do that, and then add the characteristics of a sweet song, high pitched and blah blah blah, and then you can generate a new song that has the vibe of the music that they like, along with the sweetness that you want to add to it for a particular dish, or the sourness that you want to add to it. And again, it can be interactive, like music, music in a video game can be interactive based on what type of enemy is going on, or like what you're doing in the game. All that could be immediately generated for a diner. And I think that's kind of cool. In this light, excuse the pun, in this light, there are now multicolored LEDs installed over each table at the Fat Duck, following the recent refurbishment. These bulbs subtly change color as the diner is giving table progress on a journey from night to day on the next evening during the course of their meal. Oh, interesting. Night to day and then to night again. The lighting changes take place at different times on each table. Is this really the future of personalized atmospheric? I suspect that it might be a start. So I'm just thinking of personalization and lighting. All right. The next chapter is social dining. I'll probably read by myself off stream. The telematic dining party. What is that? It says eating on Skype. It says right here, Skype. Tapasization. Tapasization. I like eating tapas with my friends. I like eating some dim sum with my friends. Tapasization. Small plates. It's cool. Solo dining. Got another book I want to read for a moment. I won't be reading the book. I'll just be reading a chapter. Not even a chapter. I'll be reading a sentence in the book. I want to read a single sentence. Something I was thinking about last night. Don't know what came over me, but I was thinking about it, and I wanted to think about it more Here's a good time to do it. I'm going to take notes of this to myself. So we're going to read a little bit of a book called The Brothers Karamazov. Oh, yeah. I'm actually going to pause for one moment before we get into The Brothers Karamazov. You know, at some point I had a BRB screen, but I don't remember how I did it. Oh, I think I just filtered it myself. There we go. This is what I did. Boom. I also did I did like this. I did like this. I don't think that helps at all, but you know, whatever. Here's my BRB screen. I'm gonna BRB. I am back. Being right back has happened. I'm right back. We're gonna pour a little bit of this tea. We're gonna read a little bit of The Brothers Karamazov. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. Reading the first sentence of The Brothers Karamazov. I've been thinking about it. Been thinking. About those brothers. Brothers Karamazov. This is the edition I have. Got it from a friend. I just saw it at a friend's house. I don't remember how it actually came out. I don't know if I saw it and I asked for it or if she just mentioned it. Oh, it's a book that she's reading. Something like that. I don't know. I don't actually remember how it came about. But I got it from a friend's house. I've been known to take books from my friends. I've mentioned, okay, have I mentioned, I've mentioned a critical theory book, which is not my book, that's a book that I got from a friend. I've mentioned House of Leaves, which I took from a friend, and then she took it back, so I bought my own version of it. But I'd read it. I read it all. I read her book, and when she wanted it back, I bought my own because I liked it a lot. And this one is from a friend. All right, reading the first sentence. Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov was the third son of Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov, a landowner well known in our district in his own day, and still remembered among us owing to his gloomy and tragic death, which happened 13 years ago, and which I shall describe in its proper place. That's the sentence. Oh, okay. So the thing that got me, which I was just thinking about, I'm confirming it now that I'm reading it, that there's like this gravitational pull towards the word death in this sentence, death. And I felt it as I was thinking about it, and then I thought about it more, and I thought about the rhythm of the words and the emphasis, and it kind of made me feel more that the there's like a rhythm that brings the attention towards that word death. So I'm gonna read that part of the sentence again. A landowner well known in our district in his day, and still remembered among us, owing to his gloomy and tragic death. Owing to his gloomy and tragic death, yeah. Still remembered among us. Okay. So what I'm getting is, what I'm hearing is this countdown. It's 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wait. Owing to his gloomy and tragic death. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. There's like a there's a technique in Indian music. I don't know what the technique is called. I don't remember. This book is like falling apart. The pages are coming out. It's like a technique where they'll have a sections that repeat, and they continuously repeat, but they start with like 14 measures, and then it comes down to like sorry, beats instead of more measures. So they're like 14 beats, and then the next one is repeated again but with 13 beats, and then it's repeated again with 12 beats, and you keep going down and down and down, and it just builds up this excitement because it gets shorter and shorter, and you get to the point where it's four beats, 3 beats, 2 beats, 1 beat. Cool musical technique. And I'm getting that here, owing to his gloomy and tragic death, right? Owing is like the strength owing to its gloomy and tragic death. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. Loving it. So that's what caught my attention recently. I also like there are like all these different contrasts that are brought up. Right? It starts with Alexei. So presumably the sentence is about Alexei. Apparently it's not, because it starts with Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov. That's the first 3 words, name of a person. Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov was the third son. So we've got Alexei being in contrast with the third son. It's like he's just contrast with the third son. Contrast with his siblings. Alexei in contrast with his siblings. And to me, this is like, there's this thing that I don't know how common it is. It's something that Mr. Beast does in his videos. If you look at a Mr. Beast video, very commonly it'll be like a zoom in like the first shot, and then the second shot is going to be a zoom out. So like it'll be like a him standing and talking, and it's like a shot of him standing and talking, and it immediately zooms out to the full, like the environment that he's in. It's something that also happens in, if you ever watch Watchmen, or if you've read Watchmen. I have the book. I'm gonna grab the book because it demonstrates what I'm thinking about. But the beginning of Watchmen is like a zoom in of a pin like a pin on the clothes, and then it zooms out to a city. You get the book. Let's see if I'm remembering this properly. Yes, I am. All right. This is the first. This is the first panel. This panel here. First panel. Zoom in of the pin. Right, and then you get this panel. It's kind of zoomed out. You zoom out more. Zoom out more. Zoom out more. Then you zoom out all the way. Get the picture. Zoom in. Zoom out. And you can't even. Oh, you can. You can very barely see here. That's where the pin is. This pin here that you see there is shown right there in this last panel. So anyway, the idea for me that I'm just picking up on. Zoom in, zoom out. As the intro. Same thing that Mr. Beast does. Alan Moore is doing it in this book. And picking up on it is, in a sense, in this Brothers Karamazov. This is Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov. And then you can zoom out to his siblings. And there's a contrast there. I guess I should think more about the zooming out first before contrast, because it's a whole other thing. So you zoom in to Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov, but then you come out to the siblings, and then you come out to the father, and then you come out to the whole community, and they just it zoom in and then zooming out into getting greater context. I thought that's cool. And then let's look more into the contrast. Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov, person, in contrast with his siblings, 3 sons, of Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov, father, contrast of the siblings and the father. And then he's a landowner, well known in our district, in his own day. So a landowner, I guess that's an implicit distinction between people who are not landowners. I guess that's a very important thing. This is Russia. It's a Russian book from the 1800s, 1880 something I think is when it was written. He's a landowner, well known in our district in his own day. And now we have this introduction of our district in his own day, right? So now we have this other contrast of it's our district. Does our mean including Karamazov? Does our mean including me, the reader? Who is this our? And then we got this weird contrast here that I don't quite understand. In his own day, and he's still remembered among us. So that kind of plays into the our and us, which is in contrast to him. So he's in contrast with the community. That's how I'm picking up on it. And he's still remembered among us, and now we're getting like a temporal relationship of a contrast between the temporal relationship owing to his gloomy and tragic death. Contrast of life and death here. We got people who are alive, the us who are alive in the district, and then him who's dead and has been dead. Which happened 13 years ago, and which I shall describe in its proper place. And it just makes me wonder personally, what happened? What happened 13 years ago? And what is this proper place? The proper place is going to be the context of it, right? The death happened, but then we have the context around the death, which is presumably going to be the whole book is about the context around it, the proper place. Right? You zoom into gloomy and tragic death. There was a gloomy and tragic death. And this is the context in which the gloomy and tragic death happened. We've got to put it in its proper place. This whole first chapter is amazing. It continues into amazing stuff. I'm not going to read it though. I'm just thinking of that rhythm. So we've got the contrast, we've got the zooming in and the zooming out, and we've got the natural rhythm of it. I'm going to read it again because I want to feel that rhythm. Alexei, I'm going to see if there are other rhythms that come out too. Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov was the third son of Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov, a landowner well known in our district in his own day, and still remembered owing to his gloomy and tragic death, which happened 13 years ago, and which I shall describe in its proper place. Well, proper place. And I'm not picking up on any other specifically curated rhythm or highlighted rhythm here, which happened 13 years ago, in which I shall describe in its proper place. Now I'm still curious because I'm not finished with the book. I'm only 140 pages in, and it's a 500-page book. It's a pretty big book. I don't understand. I understand artistically. I just don't get it though in any other sense. Why is it starting off with Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov? This whole chapter, the whole first chapter is about Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov, not about Alexei. Also, his name Alexei is he's usually called Alyosha in the book. Not relevant to what we're talking about here. Why is the first word of this entire book Alexei Fyodorovich Karamazov and not just Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov? Because the book seems to be mostly about Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov. So again, I'm only 100 and something pages in. He hasn't been killed yet, or he hasn't died yet. Whatever its gloomy and tragic death is, I think he's going to get murdered. Actually, I want to think about more of these contrasts first. But I don't think there's much more to say about it. But I'm very interested in the beginning, the contrast where the contrast comes out of us versus them. Us versus Theodore. A landowner well known in his district well known in our district in his own day. A landowner well known in our district in his own day, and still remembered among us. That's the one. Still remembered among us. Owing to his gloomy and tragic death. Owing to his gloomy and tragic death. Which happened 13 years ago, and which I should describe in its proper place. Another thing about numbers here, we've got 3 sons. We got 13 years ago. Why does it have to be 13 years ago? Is that super relevant? There's something relevant about the number 13 or 3? Why is the book in first person? Is another thing I don't understand. Why is the book in first person? I don't know who this person is. The person who's speaking. It's his district. It's about his district. He's presumably a character. He's putting the whole book into the proper place. I like the first person nature of it. It's a very conversational book. Okay. Anyway, enough of that. I'm done reading the Brothers Karamazov. Now, I was just thinking about it. Wanted to share. That's the end of the stream. I got nothing else to say. We're done here. Yeah, out of here. We're done here. All right. It was fun. I will stream again some other time. I'm going to be thinking more about streaming. I've got some tea things I want to. Oh, I got some tea things I want to stream. So I recently got a couple of. I got a couple of Lapsang Souchongs. These are 2 Lapsang Souchongs. I'm not going to open or smell them. They're sealed currently. One of them is smoked, and one of them is unsmoked. I also have a third one that's a wild one, but I'm not going to try that one. It's this one. It's a wild lapsang souchong. Only 5 grams. The other two I have 25 grams. I wanted to taste them both and compare them. And I want to use the GPT voice mode to take the notes for me. I think I probably need to test the GPT voice mode. I'll just do it while I do it. I'll test it while I'm doing it. I want to drink some tea. I want to pay attention to the flavors and the experience. And I'm going to do that using GPT to take the notes and then figure out how to have GPT compile the notes. I'm going to do it with unsmoked lapsang souchong and with a smoked lapsang souchong. And that will happen at some time next week. Most likely on Tuesday. Perhaps on Thursday. That's it for this stream. I'm happy you're joining.